My name's Ed Carroll. I'm the trumpet teacher and the coordinator of brass studies at Cal Arts. I'm in my fifth year. The New Millennium Brass Program is a new program for us, and it's going sensationally well, and I'm happy to talk about it. Well, I grew up in Chicago, and so the Chicago Symphony was very important to me. Bud Herseth, of course, the icon principal trumpet in the Chicago Symphony. He was a neighbor in Oak Park, Illinois. My first trumpet teacher was Reynolds Schilke, the trumpet manufacturer. My father worked in his shop for a long time. Jerry Schwartz was my trumpet teacher at Juilliard. He meant a lot to me. I had a very small, narrow view of trumpet playing then. I was aware of, all the jazz musicians. I was aware of all the different other styles, but I wasn't interested in that for myself. I envisioned myself as being an American Maurice Andre, which of course I never became. However, as I got deeper into that, trying to live this dual life, I made a bunch of CDs, and this dual life as a solo trumpeter that was finding himself in a symphony orchestra many times like this. I found that I was eventually satiated by all of this, that I had played this music enough, that I had done enough of that. When I came to Cal Arts, I found that this was an environment that I could become a student in again. And that passion was rekindled. I've always been passionate about music, but this passion for exploration and first experience. The first time I played the Mahler symphonies, it was such a pleasure because the music was so elemental and I was doing it for the first time. The 150th time that I played the Mahler symphonies, I'll be honest, I was phoning it in to some degree compared to my first performances like this. But when we do new musics here and we experiment with different musics in ways that I never experimented before, then I become a student along with our students here. And then we have this interesting, what shall I say, this relationship, this laboratory where the teachers are the students are the teachers. We're all part of the growth of music together. We have people like Jim Tenney on the faculty and Mort Sabatnik that are brilliant musicians. We have a fantastic instrumental faculty that are wonderful practitioners, not only of their instrument, but as artists also. And they're all moving forward. And so we all have this feeling of being in this boat doing this together. And it's fascinating. And hopefully our students then pick up on that vibe. We attract a different type of student at Cal Arts. These are students that are looking for us, I feel, instead of us going out and recruiting them. These are students that understand that there are sweeping changes happening in the musical landscape. Traditional marketplace changing. They're the iPod generation. They have a totally different mix of music in their heads like this. It's not as compartmentalized. The old record companies used to tell us what to listen to and how to listen to it. Now it's soup to nuts. And so the students that we typically find that are attracted to Cal Arts are people that want to study virtuoso music, but they wanted to challenge some of these boundaries. They're looking at new classical musics. They're looking at jazz, traditional jazz. They're looking at free improvisation. They're looking at new world musics, technology, people that are interested in where music is headed. Is very, very important. And those students, we find, typically find us instead of us having to go out and beat the bushes to find them. I've always, forgive me, this sounds sanctimonious. It's not. I've always viewed music, and particularly our repertoire, as a river. It flows from the Baroque into the classical period, into the Romantic period, into the neoclassic, new musics, and beyond like this. We can enter that river at any point, but it's always moving ahead. So our students here typically we'll study Bach cantatas, and my trumpet students will play the Second Brandenburg Concerto, or the Haydn concerto, and the important pieces of the repertoire, but not to go back to recreate concerts in that museum style like this, but to be acquainted with this language and the technique that it takes to play this music so that they can then use that culture to take music ahead and take it forward. So they're working on romantic music, particularly because it's music of the individual person. They're working on some neoclassic music. They're getting this culture in their ears, but then they take that culture to the composers here at CalArts or other composers that they commission, or music that they write themselves or they improvise like this, and then they use that culture then to create their own individual repertoire that they can then move ahead. And then, of course, at CalArts they do this. The possibilities for interdisciplinary collaboration are endless, because they could do this with projections, with film, with animation. They could take classes in the theater schools so that they could give real performances instead of just the traditional sort of sonata type of, boring trumpet program. I love it. It's a very heady thing. The difficulty is when students come here to audition, and if they come with their parents, we talk about the school, and the students understand it because they found us, and they understand perfectly. The parents, and I'm a parent, I have two high school kids, and the parents look me in the eye and they say, but what is my son or daughter going to do when they graduate from here? And I have to be able to look them in the eye and say, I have absolutely no idea, but that's the point. The point of art is to create this environment where the person could, put things together for him or herself. So this son or daughter might create work here that will resonate throughout their career. Or they might wait around for the phone to ring. We believe very, very strongly, I believe personally very strongly, that those people that take responsibility for their own career will be the ones that have a place in this brave new world that we're in, and will do very well. I listen, when students audition for my class, I listen to them play. I don't have pieces that I ask them to play. I just tell them to bring whatever they would like to present to me. I listen to them play for a short time just to make sure that they have the skill that they should have to be able to enter the school like this. Then I have them put their instrument away, because we could teach a chimp to play the trumpet. We know that. That's not the issue here. But what type of musical personality do they have? Do they want to be a musician, or do they have to be a musician? So we interview for a half an hour after that. And again, the audition period, they'll play for 5 minutes, and then they'll talk to me for 25. And I put much more weight on what our connection is this artistically. And is this a person that's going to be intimidated by this environment? Because there's so many possibilities, and the possibilities are endless. Sometimes it's easy to sort of disappear into one shell like this. Or are they going to see the possibilities like this and go out and seize the day? And if it's somebody like that aspires to be that type of creative artist, then bring them on. The students that come here, because it's a very, very small class, I mean, we have a 6-to-1 student-teacher ratio, something like this. I don't have to do a lot of tongue-and-blow remedial trumpet teaching here, although I do some. It's really more of a matter of challenging the students, particularly the younger students, to play harder music than they're used to playing. It's easy to sort of run in place on these instruments and try to make their sound better, or do more of what they've been doing and do it at a better level. Well, that's fine. We'll do that until we die. We're always trying to improve that. But my interest here is to find students and encourage my students to take the African drumming course and to be serious about their ear training and their theory classes, and maybe become composers themselves, and to be looking at technology and looking in these unexpected places like this. The trumpet playing part of the equation comes pretty quickly. The artistic side, of course, is lifelong. And we want to introduce our students to those possibilities so that then when they leave Cal Arts, they will continue to grow as artists and as musicians and not just sort of graduate and say, well, now what do I do? New music, of course, is the music that's unexplored for most of these people. There are musicians that we know all over the world that still consider music that was written back in the 20s to be new music. I mean, that Poulenc is a modern composer. Oh, my God. I look at music here, we could say starting with the Barrio Sequenza, which is 1984, using that as a benchmark because it's a wonderful piece. It was written for Tom Stevens and Los Angeles Philharmonic. Using this and some other related pieces around that period. And then there's a rich repertoire in the 20 years after that particular piece was composed that's mostly unexplored by these students before they come here. And so I want to introduce them to that, and I want them to see that that's the music that came after the music that they were traditionally studying. And then from there are composers here that will be adding the next layer onto that. And that we're always, again, we're jumping into that river at different points, but it's always moving forward. And we're never backpedaling and reproducing concerts that swing in an Ellingtonian sense of the word. You know, this doesn't happen here. I think to be an artist, you have to be open to possibilities and passionate about all of them. I'm 51 now. I'm more excited and more stimulated with music today than I was when I was 21. Because I see more possibilities. Not only because the times are changing and there are opportunities afoot, but also because it's so important that we do this work. It's so important that we bring this work to these young musicians. They haven't tasted the concert life that I've tasted, and it's been wonderful. And I want them all to have that opportunity. And I want them to all be able to bring that then to our society and build audience and create new and unexpected things. There's a big audience out there. We have more people in the world than we've ever had before. They want music, but I don't think that they want it packaged and presented in the same way that they've always had it. My work with trumpet playing now is focused on putting it into context. There's a wealth of material out there, and the internet has changed everything. I find young students that can quote verbatim the words of Arnold Jacobs, who could tell us how our instruments should be played and how they are played most efficiently. Fine, then what? It's then placing that work into context that interests me. You can play the trumpet. Fine. Many people can play the trumpet. Now what? How does that relate to your world as an artist? How does that relate to our society? Context is everything, and that's what I'm focusing on here. There are other people that are concerned with this. The interesting thing that I find is that everyone really is concerned with the same issues. All of these students around the country, I feel, understand that there are changes happening. They're asking for this information. They're voracious. They understand that that the world is moving ahead and that they're going to have to stay somehow ahead of the curve or they're going to be lost in the undertow. And so they're doing the work on the technical level, I think, quite well like this. Now, what are they going to do with it artistically? How do they put it into context? That's my interest here. I would ask that student to ask themselves if they want to be a musician or if they have to be a musician. If they want to be a musician, they should think about it a little bit more. It's a wonderful thing to do. We could do it in the context of other things that we do in our life. If they have to be a musician, then to treat that very, very seriously, and to pursue it with all of their energy, 150% of their time. You can't do it any less. It takes that type of commitment. And the ones that succeed are the ones that do it with that absolute commitment, reckless abandon, accept circumstances that are unforeseen, grow in unexpected ways, that are open to all those possibilities. The ones that don't succeed, sadly, are the ones that have a little preconceived notion of how things must be and try to practice their art within that small box. And it's wonderful if that small box is there for them, but often it closes, and then what? So I would say that it's important to ask yourself, is this something that, am I a musician or do I want to play music? And if you're a musician, then go for it with everything.